we are going to be doing estate planning, or what is our legacy. I am told that we are not too far from retirement, true or false? So I just want us to start off there, and then we will get into things. I know we don't have a lot of time, but in this season that a lot of us are getting into, I want to start by asking, when you think about retirement or putting your affairs in order, or just getting out of formal employment, what are some of the fears that you have? What are some of the fears that you have as you get into this next season of your life? Haya, tuweke hii hapa. So fears, losing money. Anything else? Losing friends. Losing money, losing friends.
It's like starting over a new life.
Starting over?
From the normal.
Starting over. You've said a new life, isn't it? Interaction with the community. Interaction with the community. Losing money, losing friends, starting over, interaction with the community. Anything else as you think about retirement? What else comes to mind? Do you have any fears? What are some of the things that you hope for?
How do family take you and respond? Yani how
watakuchukua aje?
Watoto wako, yako how watakureceive namna gani?
Family reception, how will they receive you? Okay. Any other fear maybe that I haven't written? What are some of the things that we are hoping for as we go into this next stage? What are some of the things, matumaini yetu, what are some of the things we are hoping for? As you think about putting your affairs in order, retiring, what are some of the things we are hoping for? Kuishi vizuri. Haya, nifafanulie kidogo tu, kuishi vizuri ni nini? Okay, so quality life. What does a quality life look like to you?
Like, no, I don't have to wake up for that. But still I have to eat comfortably. In a nice place.
Freedom of time.
Yeah.
Comfort. Yeah. Anything else? Any other hopes?
Seeing some new achievements. Like, you know, I like to be a millionaire.
Nice. New achievements.
New achievements.
Millionaire.
After retire, I want to do something new.
Okay, good. Any other thing that we are hoping for? Living within our means. Currently, are we living within our means? Ama hiyo utajibu later. Living within our means. Maybe one last one. So what we want to do this afternoon, noting that we have some fears, we have some hopes, how can we make certain choices yeah, that influence the next stage we are going to. And certain choices just means exactly this, that you have an intention, you make certain choices to get your intended outcome. Now, doing that, my role this afternoon is just to talk about, are our affairs in order? Just that. If something happened to you today, is your wife, your children, are they taken care of? How many of us, our affairs are in order? If something happened to you today, knock on wood, wanguke, watoto, bibi, you've put things well. Anyone? Which means then hopefully we are good for the discussion, isn't it? Yeah? All right. Now, one of the things we'll get into is, and I think I asked that in terms of our fears, our biggest concerns, what will we do to manage these concerns? But for me, I will teach you the tools to help us put our affairs in order. So there are two parts of estate planning. There's the death part, and then there's the life part. So I want us to start with the death part and talk about death in terms of, are our affairs in order? Have we written a will? What happens if we die? What does succession look like? And then we talk about the life part. Is that okay? Higher. How many of us here have a will? How many of us have thought about it, but we have not put it down? It is too early. Higher. For him, it's too early. Anyone else? Umefikiria lakini hujaandika. For him, it's too early. Traditionally, it's a taboo. It's like, in fact, in African culture, they say we are calling on death. Well, we are calling it if we talk about it.
But there's a procedure when it happens. There's a procedure just to be followed.
Yes.
But you don't have to keep on talking about it.
Okay. But have you set the procedure? Traditionally, the procedure is there. Yeah. Higher. Anyone else? I think your hand was up. Was your hand up? Yeah, You've thought about it, but you've not put it down. Yeah. Higher. Okay. So what I want to do is this. What I want to do is this. We will get into this. But before we talk about will, I want us to start here because we don't have a will, isn't it? We start on the plan that most of us are on. Sawa sawa. Now, if someone passes on and you don't have a will, if you believe, A, we'll go to number 1, B, we'll go to number 2, C, we'll go to number 3, and everyone is in agreement, you can take that plan to court. Yeah? Through the family division and do succession, probate and administration. But we agree there are many times where families don't agree. True or false? Kuna mtu anaona mimi nilikuwa firstborn, actually I should have been given this. And we see that a lot, isn't it? Sio kwa familia yenu, kwa jirani, sio zenu, kwa jirani, si ndio? And what happens in such instances? When families are not in agreement, then we say the operation of law comes into place. Meaning this, the Law of Succession Act. So I want to give you various instances in which people inherit where families do not agree. Number 1, the court will normally appoint someone we call an administrator. We anakusanya kila kitu and they distribute according to the instructions of the court. An administrator can be a surviving spouse, it can be an adult child, it can be a brother, it can be a sister, it can be someone close to the family. Now, what they're distributing is what is called the net estate. Net estate is vitu zako zote, we remove any debts or any loans, any liabilities, funeral expenses, the remainder out of your things is what is called the net estate. So I want to give you various ways in which people inherit. Nastaki kuwa watu bado. So I want to have Mr. Light. I'll have Mr. Light and Mrs. Light. So please follow my example. Example 1. Mr. Light has 1 wife, 4 children, 5 properties. Mr. Light dies. What happens? Mrs. Light is entitled to 1 property. Absolutely. It is hers to do whatever she wants to do with it. She can keep it, she can sell it, she can give it out, whatever she wants to do with it. 80%, which is the 4 properties, she gets to enjoy life interest. Life interest means that you can enjoy something, but you do not have a right to sell it. When she dies, the children inherit equally. Now, where there is no will, children inherit equally. It doesn't matter it's the children from this marriage or from this relationship or from that one. As long as you are a child of a deceased, you inherit equally. Are we together? Let me use Mrs. Light. Mrs. Light has 1 husband, 4 children, 5 properties. Mrs. Light dies. Mr. Light is entitled to 1 property. The law inasema 20%. He's absolutely, he can do whatever he wants to do with it. 80%, which is the 4, and I enjoy as life interest. When he dies, the life interest terminates and it goes to his children, who inherit equally. So for purposes of the law where there is no will, children inherit equally. It doesn't matter which union you're from. Example 2. Mr. Light has 1 wife, 5 properties, no children. What happens? Actually, I should just be using Mrs. Light because I'm here with men, isn't it? Acha nitumie hiyo. Mrs. Light has 1 husband, 5 properties, no children. What happens? Mr. Light is entitled to 1 property absolutely. Ni yake. He can sell it, keep it, give it out. Haijalishi. These other 4, he enjoys as life interest. When he dies, the life interest terminates, alafu inaenda kwa familia ya bibi. The wife's family. Her father, mother, brother, and sisters. Remember, it was hers to begin with. Are we okay? Higher example 3. Mrs. Light has no husband, no children, 5 properties. What happens? All of this property goes to her family. Father, mother, brother, sisters. The same thing if it was Mr. Light. No spouse, no children, inaenda kwa his first family. Wazazi and siblings. Mr. Light has 5 children, 5 properties. They all share equally. Now, in our African context, we have polygamous families. True or false? Higher. So what happens? Mr. Light has 3. Nimeona some people are starting to smile at me. Hapo meitikia sana. I can see some smiles. Anyway, Mr. Light has 3 wives. Wife number 1 has 1 child. Wife number 2 has 2 children. Wife number 3 has, wife number 1 has 1 child. Wife number 2 has 2 children. Wife number 3 has 3 children. What happens? Mr. Light dies. How do the people inherit? Each individual is regarded as a house. So wife number 1 with 1 child, those are 2 houses. Wife number 2 with 2 children, those are 3 houses. And wife number 3 with 3 children, those are 4 houses. And the law will give the biggest chunk to the biggest house. Yeah? Now, if there is a wife who has no children, she is still entitled to inherit. But she will not inherit as much as these are the ones who have children. Are we together with that? Now, sometimes people ask, because the assumption is, in our African culture, ni bibi wa kwanza, isn't it? I think the ladies normally ask, ni si wa kwanza? No. By the law, it is the wife with the most children, because the assumption is that she has more mouths to feed. Now, yes.
Now, the first wife, most likely atakuwa na more children.
If she has more children, no problem.
Yeah, so just traditional, I think the first one, unless some other normal reasons.
Yes.
But she is supposed to be having more children
than the others.
Yeah.
If she has more children, she gets the most.
That's how I think it becomes the first year. Wife number one should start getting the more.
She should start getting the more.
Yeah.
If she has most children, she gets the biggest allocation. Now, I want to go back to the first example where I said Mr. Light has 1 wife, 4 children, 5 properties. Mrs. Light, Mr. Light dies. Bibi anapata 1 property, has absolutely 80% tulisema she enjoys as life interest. When she dies, the life interest terminates and the children inherit equally. If Mrs. Light remarries, that life interest terminates. So if a widow remarries, the life interest terminates. But for the man, if he remarries, he still gets to keep it. So if a man remarries, he can still enjoy the proceeds until he dies. For the woman, if you remarry it ends. This is the first time I've ever said this point. Now watu hataki kunichapa because normally this is unfair to the ladies. But you know, because we got our laws from the Englishman, walikuwa anasema if a man remarries, he still needs to take care of the new family. So he still needs to enjoy any of the assets that were there. But if the widow remarries, it means she has found another family or another person who can take care of her. Any questions so far about how people inherit? Yes. Yes, ndio.
Unasema sasa sema nilikuwa na wife.
Yes.
Wife akaenda. Nikamare mwingine. Nikimare huyo mwingine. Mare that woman will say 4 or 5 kids. Sababu it's happening nowadays.
Yes.
Akuja na watoto na hao wako sio wako. Sasa wakati wa inheritance itakuwa ni nani? Watoto sio wako.
Kama umewachukua kuwa kama wako, then they can claim. Are we together? Meaning uwachukue, they live with you, you take them to school, you take them to hospital, you treat them equally as any other children that you had, then they can claim.
Na sasa si walikuwa wametoka pahali. Na huyo akiwa akona mali sasa wataclaim both family.
Most times they do. Most times they do. The reason why we are having this conversation is that at the end of this class, kila mtu ataenda mahali waandike will, so that you can avoid things like that.
So sasa nimewachukua wamekuja na mama yao. So atainherit vitu zile nilikuwa nimetafuta na yule bibi
wa kwanza.
Yule bibi aliaga. Na sasa wale wamekuja tuseme kama watatu watainherit hapa na tena wainherit kule kwa baba yao kule walitoka.
Normally watajaribu. Watajaribu. Now your family ndio wanaweza oppose. But normally watajaribu. Most times. So it is your duty sasa kuandika to decide how exactly it should go. If you don't put things in order, then people can start claiming. Excuse me.
So when you write a will, you lock them out.
If you write a will, you can lock them out. That's where I'm going to. There are certain people you cannot lock out, however, even when you write a will. Yeah? But we are just getting there right next. You want to lock them out, Haraka? I'm sorry, I think you had a question at the back. Did you have a question? Okay, any other question before we move on to write a will? Okay, so we first of all talked about what happens when you don't have a will, isn't it? We've said option 1 is that your family can sit down round a table and you agree. And you take that plan through your lawyers to court. But the thing there is everyone has to be in agreement. And we agree that a lot of families do not agree. So when families do not agree, now the operation of law, the Law of Succession Act, will come into place with those options I was giving you for inheritance. But I want us to get a little more organized. Can we get a little more organized and do a will? We'll come to that. What is a will? A will is simply what are your wishes about where your assets or wealth should go and to whom. The person who writes a will is called a testator. So ukiandika will unaitwa testator. The people who are benefiting from your will wanaitwa beneficiaries. Now there are two types of wills. There are oral wills and there are written wills. I don't like to talk about oral wills because if you do not die within 3 months of your oral will, then it is invalid. What the law says is that you are a bit apprehensive, or you thought you would die, labda ulikuwa kwa hospitali, and you thought you would die, and you called in people to give your instructions. If you did not put those instructions on paper within 3 months, if you did not die within that 3-month period, then it is invalid. So number one, for you to write a will, you must be an adult. You have to have sound mind, memory, and understanding. Sound mind, memory, and understanding sound very basic. But what it simply means is that some wills are contested when people write them when they're very sick. And the people contesting are saying, so-and-so was under such strong medication, they were not too sure what they were doing. But let me mention for the oral wills, because sometimes people ask, mzee alituita ama babu akatuambia fanya hivi, fanya hivi, fanya hivi. Doesn't that happen a lot in our African context? Yes? That is not an oral will. If you do an oral will, the people who are benefiting from your will should not be present as witnesses. So when you do an oral will, there needs to be witnesses, but the people witnessing cannot be present. Are we together? Nirudie tena. Yes. Let me use someone as an example. What's your name, sir? Gishangi. Gishani. Okay. Haya, Mr. Gishani nitakuwa. Ni sawa? Haya. Mr. Gishani gets sick. Nitampatia hata bibi na watoto by the way. Nitakupatia wote lakini nitakuwa. Mr. Gishani gets sick and he calls his wife na watoto wake 4. Na anawaambia, wewe nataka upate yako ka plot, na wewe pale, na wewe hii shamba. Anawaambia instructions zote hapo. And then unfortunately anaaga. That is not an oral will, because the people alikuwa anaambia are benefiting from that will. Sawa sawa? What he should do is call either a brother or a sister or a close friend, ama mzee, someone who is not benefiting, awaambie those instructions. So when we hear the wazees, ama babu zetu, when they give those instructions, they are just their wishes. Yeah? Legally, they are not oral wills. Are we clear? Any question? Higher. So written wills, what are some of the things that you need to do? You need to identify yourself. I said the person mwenye anaandika will is called the testator. The people who are benefiting are called beneficiaries. So you write your beneficiaries, you as the testator, your beneficiaries can be bibi, watoto, mama, anyone you want. And that's a good place to lock out people if you want. And then when there was no will, tulisema the court appoints people we call administrators. When you're writing a will, now you appoint people, they are called executors. These are the people who will kusanya and distribute according to your instructions. That being said, it's not a secret process. Ati executor anafanya na wakili. All of it we submit it to the court. The one benefit of a will is that it makes it faster and it makes the process smoother. Now, so you have your beneficiaries, you appointed an executor. Executor anaweza kuwa bibi, adult child, sister, brother, mama, close friend. That is okay. You can give things specifically. I want to give this board. I want to give that computer. I want to give car registration number. I want to give plot number this. You can give specifically. But you can also give and you proportionate. I want to give 50% to my wife, 30% to so and so, 10%. You can do that. So that as you continue acquiring things, you don't have to keep running to your lawyer. A good will can last you 30 to 40 years. So that when you proportionate, as you continue to acquire, they just fall into place. Now, once you've written your will, if you only provided for your bibi na watoto, if you're married, you should also plan for the worst. What if your wife and your children do not survive you? Wakufe mbele yako. Who else would you like to benefit from any of the things that you have? Put it down. And then once you have your nicely written will, one of the things it needs to do is be witnessed. So when you're witnessing, we do your will. The people who are witnessing you signing your will. They don't need to know the contents kenye umeandika. Again, anyone who is benefiting from your will cannot be a witness. You remember, even for the oral will, anyone who is benefiting cannot be a witness. Unaweza. You have a right to. You keep 2 or 3 copies. Keep one with your lawyer. Ingine unaweza eka bank safe. And then I will tell you about a document you can have that gives some instructions, immediate instructions ukitaka, but they don't need to know. Ukitaka kuambia, good, but they don't need to know what is in your will. But when you're signing your will, they cannot be present legally. It would invalidate your documents. Yeah. But if you want to tell them, if you go home or you come to the office and you're signing, we tell them, step aside, you sign. They cannot see you signing. We need to get other witnesses. Are we together? Good. Now, to answer your question, there are people you cannot disinherit. You cannot disinherit a spouse. You cannot disinherit children. You don't have to give them as much as they want, but huwezi watoa completely. If you remove them, they will contest your will and they will contest it successfully. The law inasema you need to make reasonable provision. You are the one who gets to decide what reasonable is. Yeah? All the other people you can disinherit. A spouse, a child, you cannot. And that's how you hear kwa mazishi people come up, isn't it? Because they know if it is proven that you are a child of so and so, then you are entitled to inherit. But the threshold ya hawa wengine is very, very high. Why? Because especially like in our African context, we support our larger families. You can be helping your niece, a cousin, an auntie, but it does not give them the right to claim inheritance. Yeah? It doesn't mean that they will try, but they do not have a right to actually get anything. But if you remove your wife completely, she can go to court and get something. If you remove your daughter or your son, hata kama alikuwa from which relationship or anything, you need to make some provision. Hata kama utampea kidogo tu. Are we good with that? Hakuna mwenye atasikia. But and it works the same at the ladies, even for them, because that is common, isn't it? Wanaeka tu, sometimes just the children. If they disinherit a husband, someone can go and contest successfully. If you're single and you write a will, when you get married, you need to include your partner. Yes.
You said that if you don't include your wife,
Mm-hmm.
in that way, she can go to court will agree to give something.
Yes.
Then what's the need of will? Because I know with the will, what you have written is what is supposed to be followed.
True.
Why should she go there and claim and
because if you're married, then there is an assumption of the law that this person, if she is a wife, then she is a core part of your life. At death, you cannot decide to put her aside. During your lifetime, if you wanted to put her aside, you would have gotten a divorce. But because you stayed with her to the very end, the law assumes that you still wanted her to be part of you, even with the things.
So you as well, you don't follow the will.
Sorry?
You don't follow the will, because with the will you cannot write it when you are dying. You write something that is written before.
Yes.
And there must be a reason why you did it.
Yes.
So once you have gone, why should she be given that part of it?
Now, and it's not us who will put, it's normally the judge, because it goes to court. Yeah? You don't have to put how much she wants. The law says reasonable. Sasa wewe, you're the one who decides what reasonable is. Ati? Kenye itafanya, if you add this, na umemtoa kabisa, tamgawia kadogo na impe. Yes. Haya. Koti. Hizi ndio vitu zako, tamgawia kadogo na impe. So what is my advice? If you write a will, you need to include your spouse, you need to include your children. You might not give your wife or child X how much they want, but you need to give them something. If you don't, then you open yourself up to your will being contested. And in most likelihood, contested successfully. Good. If you have divorced, which is what I was saying, if you have divorced, you see at the point of divorce, when we do divorce proceedings in court, there is division of assets at that point. Yeah? So, huyu akienda kuclaim, the court will tell her, you already got your portion during divorce. You cannot get during divorce and during death. So that is okay. If you divorced, fine. Then she's a former wife, does not apply. But if you're still living with her as a spouse, then she is entitled to something. Yes.
What if during divorce he had nothing? Can I come and claim now that he has built something? So during divorce, he was still very young, he had not made any money.
And then ukae and then atajirike. No. Because you're not anything to him anymore. Are we together? Your relationship after divorce is done. If you had children, they are entitled. But with you, no. Yes. Your children are always entitled. Yes.
What this type of divorce we are talking about? Our tradition, I don't think you are doing
local divorce.
It affects
higher. In fact, I tell people, a lot of us know it in our tribes and customs, isn't it? How many of us know what it takes to separate in our tribes and customs? Ati? What does it take to divorce in your tribe? Mali na yote ama nusu?
Inarudi yote.
Inarudi yote?
Inarudi yote.
Okay.
Kama uko na watoto, watabaki kwangu.
Watoto wanabaki kwako.
Ndio nitalipia watoto. Ni asifu nime.
Okay. I know some cultures mtu aliniambia wanarudisha nusu. Yours?
Vile huyo amesema hata kwetu. Kama divorce. Na nilikuwa nimetolea mali. Na madam unajua kawaida yeye ameenda kabisa. Ile mali itarudishwa. Itakava mahali ya watoto na pia hata dai watoto. Sasa ile mali kikuja kama atataka kuoa bibi nyingine atatumia ile mali. Ile
ilirudishwa. Na wanarudisha yote?
Wanarudisha yote. Sasa mama anaenda peke yake sasa.
Nyinyi mnabaki na watoto?
Sisi tunabaki na watoto. Hebu sikiza vile niwaambia.
Aya, wait, let's listen.
Nowadays mama akitoka hapa aenda kuoa peke yake. Ataolewa kwingine. Sasa kama ataolewa kule ameolewa, ile mali watatoa ndio italipa ile yako.
Irudishwe kwako.
Na hiyo inafanyikaga hivi. Hawezi akaenda akakaa peke yake. Lazima ataolewa. Kwa maisha ya sasa ataolewa.
Unajua kwa mara nyingine kama Wakikuyu wanavaa mali
wanachanganya vitu hapa. Wanachanganya vitu hapa. Kuna ile divorce ya katiba.
Kuna ile yes.
Kuna divorce ya katiba. Na kuna ile tuna separation na kasirika inatoka.
Haya. Let me make it clear. Let me make, in fact I normally have a slide on marriages. Our law allows for two types of unions. Monogamous unions and polygamous. Monogamous and polygamous. Monogamous meaning one man, one woman. Please give me examples of monogamous. Kanisa, so church or Christian, gani ingine? Au wengine? I mean, Christian marriage, I mean this. You go for a wedding in church or it is presided over by a priest or a pastor. Which other one is monogamous? One man, one woman. Ukipeleka mtu AG, isn't it? Hiyo inaitwa civil. Ingine? For those who practice the Hindu faith, it is monogamous. Now, if you got married in church, ama ukapeleka bibi, AG, Sharia house, the only way you can get another spouse is if you have a legal divorce or if you practice the Hindu faith. Haya, please give me examples of polygamous. Muslims,
Traditions, Africa.
Traditional or customary, isn't it? Haya, hizi tunapenda kuziita potentially polygamous, and I want to explain that. Haya, may I please have a volunteer? Well, let someone volunteer. Hapana, we kuja. A volunteer, I can see. You want to stand up? You're Mr. who? Mr. Oduso. Mr.
Onduso.
Onduso.
Yes.
Yeah. Sawa sawa. How are you? Now, for purposes of this class, I'm giving you a wife anaitwa Wendy. Umefurahi?
Sana. Lakini niko na bibi.
Ni for this class. Ni for this class pekee. Sawa sawa?
Yes.
Haya. So Wendy and Mr. Adusu get married traditionally. Meaning he comes to our home and finds out what it takes to get married in our culture, isn't it? We do the visits, analipa mali, rurashio, nasikia mnazijua zote. Na hata tunafanya gurario. It is called a potentially polygamous union. Me and him can go to church. We've converted a potentially polygamous union to a monogamous union. And we see people doing that. You have your traditional marriage and then mnaenda kanisani, isn't it? Or we can do our traditional wedding and then we go to the AG. We've converted our potentially polygamous marriage into a monogamous union, isn't it? Please remind me your name. Sylvia. Haya. We get married traditionally. We stay for a few years. Anaanza kuangalia hapo. Anapata Sylvia gets married to her traditionally. And then thereafter takes Sylvia to church. That is illegal. Or takes Sylvia to the AG. He only has the option to convert a potentially polygamous union to a monogamous union on the first spouse, akiwa na Wendy. You can only move from this side to this side on the first spouse. If you get spouse number 2, a traditional wedding, you can only stay on this line. Are we together? Or even apart from Sylvia, maybe he had lady number X. He cannot take lady number X to church or to the AG. Are we together? You only have that option on the first spouse. Now, I'll take your question just 1 minute. During his lifetime, it doesn't seem to pose a problem. Yeah, kosawa. Sindio? The issue comes in when he passes on. Because she will come, na atakuja na ka attitude, because yeye ndio the legal wife na akona marriage certificate, isn't it? Number 1, already you can get a marriage certificate from a traditional wedding. Let's first put that there. But number 2, all I need to show is that I got married to him before her. Meaning that this other wedding that he got married to her was an illegal union. So I am the one who is regarded as the wife. Sawa sawa. So part of putting your affairs in order is things like that. During the lifetime to kosawa, but should things turn out na akufe, I would be the one regarded as a wife. Now, your question about separation comes into place. What should we have done during our lifetime if we want to separate and he wants to take another person to church? During our lifetime, we'd have done, what does it take in our tribe or custom to get separated? Is it return mali yote? For some, I was told it's return half. For some, ita baraza la wazee. Different tribes have different things, isn't it? So we separate, and then thereafter, when he's with Sylvia, he can take her to church, or he can take her to the AG. Thank you very much. Please clap for him.
For example,
yes.
Wewe ulikuwa unataka kuniwekea hii still good. Niue. Nikuache. Nilikuwa siri. Na mali yangu ni yote niseme iende kwa siri. Itakuwa namna gani?
Ni sawa, lakini lazima unipe kadogo. If we are all married traditionally, because I am a wife, so the laws of Kenya recognize traditional unions. And because you decided to stick this way, I am a wife. So you can't decide to ni Sylvia utapea Wendy kadogo.
Mimi watoto nitaconsider wewe.
Mimi sasa uniache. Hai, sasa, and I'm happy that you've raised that. It's important to know putting our affairs in order simply means that you need to know that if you don't include your wife, akienda kotini, she can contest successfully. So what is your homework? Look at what you have If there is someone you have and you did not want to give them at all, number one, kama mta achana, if that is your only option, do a divorce. If you decide you still want to be married to that person, the law will consider you married at death and will make provision for them. Are we together? Thank you, Asante. Sylvia, you had a question.
My question is,
So
he got married to traditionally,
Mhm.
but chose to marry another wife
Mhm.
and go to church. Even if they did everything tradition, but later he got convinced and went to church and married after it. So you're saying that it's illegal?
Yes, he only has that option to go to church on the first spouse.
So what does it mean for this second? Does it mean that their marriage is illegal?
It does. Number one.
And secondly, what does it mean to his estate? And I'm not talking about the children, just
His estate.
Yeah, just his estate, because you also mentioned that he would actually change to number 3, it should be Pamela.
Higher.
You have 3 wives, all of them are traditionally amepeleka ng'ombe. But who are being ndio Nairobi somehow akampeleka ama kanisa.
If it was all traditional, I'm still regarded as a wife. So I am entitled to inherit from his estate completely. This union is an illegal union. So the fact that she's calling herself a wife does not remove the fact that I am the legal wife just because she has the marriage certificate. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So at that particular point, the first wife, which is you, can decide and say that as far as
not I can decide, nitakuwa kotini. And that's what we see.
What I'm saying is, yes, at that particular point, even the family can come and say that we do not recognize this woman as a wife because he went from being potentially polygamous to a monogamous in the wrong way. And secondly, regardless of the fact that he took property on the other side.
Yeah. Now, and let me just answer that twofold. Number one, kupeleka ng'ombe ama whatever it is that we take in our tribes does not mean you're married. It means you need to have fulfilled everything you needed to do. Isn't it? So for, you said your Kisii, isn't it? Is it just one visit to kupeleka ng'ombe ama do you have many? So that in like Kikuyu, when people say, if you just came for one visit or you went for the rurashio, did you complete everything that was required to get married? Because there are some people who claim to be wives and maybe there was only one visit. Like in my culture, in the Kikuyu, that does not mean you're married, isn't it? One visit is the beginning of the ceremonies, but it does not mean you're married. Mnalipanga. Kikuyus, they have several visits. So just because someone does one, I can't go to court to claim I am a wife. Are we together? Now, if you're here and you got married traditionally, you need to get and register your marriage and get a marriage certificate. Sawa sawa? Yes. Any other question before we move on? Yes. Yes. Wote, if you decide all polygamous, wote wanaweza pata. Yes. No. Registrar of Marriages, Sharia House. Yes. No. Kanisa does not allow for more than one wife. Yes. But if you decide your Kisii and Kisiis maybe allow more than one wife, get as many. But you need to register them all. No. You register them. Unaenda na picha, unaenda na at least 2 witnesses, mnaenda Sharia House. When you just enter Sharia House, on your left, kuna registrar of marriages. You register is there. Yes, and you get a marriage certificate and our marriage act. Ati? See my picture too, as in pictures are your ceremony of your wedding. See your pictures za watu na watu wenye walikuwa huko.
kwangu kufanya kabisa. Ndio hiyo ikatokea sasa umepata mwingine.
Aya, can we have one tafadhali tusikie?
Huwezi kuwa na bado bila mwingine. Ukachukua mwingine wa pili. Sasa huyo wa pili unapeleka kwa registrar.
Hapana. Huyo wa kwanza mwenye mlikosana, did you have a legal divorce? Mlienda kotini? Mnaachana but you got married in church, ndio nauliza. If you got married in church but did not divorce, she is your legal wife. That is it. Hata kama ako kwao, it doesn't matter. She is your legal wife. Ati? Kama walienda church kuna marriage certificate.
Ya pili tena. Ndio hiyo umekosana, ukachukua mwingine to stay with her more than 5 years. Unajua sasa huyo pia umekaa na yeye. Kulingana na hii sheria mlitoa majuzi ya Nduati 3 months enough. Ndio? No. Sasa
does not matter. Hata kama mmekaa na yeye 10 years, this one you got married within church. You cannot get another spouse after that unless you get a legal divorce. And what do we see? Kwanza, let me tell you what we see in court. When you die and your wife was Wendy, na mimi ndio ulikuwa married to in church, tukakosana and you've been living with someone else as your wife for 10 years, I just go to court and I say, in fact, hata tulikuwa tunarudiana. We'd started, tulikuwa tunaonana sasa because I am the recognized one. That is what we see. I want to move on, but I can see mkona, hey, your marriages, mkona maswali hapa. Anyway. Yes.
Yangu nakuja kuuliza hii ya will na affidavit ama will na affidavit inapelekana.
Haya, affidavit ya kusema nini? Haya, you know when we write the affidavits, maybe you want to add BB kwa policy, isn't it? Ama kwa benefit, isn't it? So unaandika affidavit unasema, oh, we got married, this is my wife. That is only for the benefit of CocaCola, to add that person into your benefit. But it does not make that person your spouse. Yes, it is not proof of someone is a spouse. Yeah. Haya, any other question before we move on?
Kitu inatushangaza kwa maisha ya polygamy hapo na Christian. Mimi nimekuwa polygamy. Niko na wanawake wawili
Ulianza hapa polygamy?
Nilianza hapa. Na nimeenda kwa kanisa. Na mambo yamenisambaratia pale.
Haya, so ulianza hapa
kanisa ikasema
okay, so ulikuwa hapa mkafanya wedding alafu ukampeleka kanisa, si ndio? Haya, ikasambaratikana hapa, isn't it? You get a legal divorce. Ndio ukitaka mwingine, then you can get married to her whichever.
Ukiwachana kanisa. Atakuja kuclaim kwa kitu kidogo tena.
Hapana, juu mkiachana, if you get married in church ama AG, mkiachana at the point of divorce, kotini kuna kuanga we do division. So huyu ako na nini, huyu ako na nini, is there anyone claiming? Mnamalizana hapo. Sasa ukikufa haezi kuja kupata times 2 during divorce and during death.
Your process ya divorce, how does it look?
Through the court. You petition the court for we petition for divorce proceedings, depending on what your reason is. Adultery, cruelty, separation, irreconcilable differences. Hizo.
So itaenda kwa court. Yale ni staki pale.
Mstaki, if they refuse to respond, mnaendelea tu
Mnaendelea kuhangaika.
Hapana. If she refuses to respond, you cannot keep a couple together. We file, we wait, akikataa kabisa, we go to the hearing and then we get the naitwa decree, hiyo order.
Na hapo tena moja niulize hapo kwa watoto na wale tumedivorce na mama. Je, hao watoto mama akikabina wataka na mama anawataka.
Haya, then you decide together with the court, mnawataka in terms of huyu anawachukua 1 month, huyu mwingine 1 month, huyu provide how much, huyu provide how much, hivyo. Which is the most stable home akae, vitu kama hizo. Which is a good environment for the child, vitu kama hizo. Yes, lakini najua saa zingine watoto ni wadogo. You know, kama ni wako a certain age unaweza fanya hivyo. Kama watoto ni 3 years na 2 years unaona hawezi waambia hivyo. Inaongezeka.
Kama saa hizi sasa kama saa hizi naweza fanya divorce.
Unaweza?
Ndio sitaki akula hii pesa.
By the way, let me tell you honestly, and I'm being very truthful. See, tunaenda retirement, and you will get a package, isn't it? I want to give you some homework. Go and think about the situation you're in, because if something happened to you and you have a spouse, she's your spouse and she's entitled. Are we together? Sasa ukifikiria hivyo, you need to ask yourself, am I going to work on the marriage or am I leaving this person? Ama mnakula pamoja. Na ukipata package, akufe anakula yeye na watoto. True or false?
Sivyo anaweza kunichiangia still package.
Can we move on?
Nikisema kitu hapa, wasee ukiangalia vizuri, mimi nimekuwa hapa. Bomba ikibaki mama inakuwa mzuri vile hata vile hata kama uko, lakini wewe ubaki peke yako, hata mtu akuonga hiyo mlango.
Hata mama baki
atakaa mzuri kuliko wewe.
Haya, can we move on? Haya. So we've talked about a will. It is good to have a document we call letter of wishes. Sasa umeandika will, umemalizana nayo. You can give a simple document inaitwa letter of wishes to someone you trust. And it gives some immediate instructions. My will can be found at this lawyer's office and at this bank safe. Maybe you had the last expense. You can put it there. Ndio watu wanafanya harambee na labda ulikuwa umejipanga. If you feel very strongly about things za kuzikwa or you want to be cremated, a good place to put it is here, because wills zinasomwa maybe after 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 1 month. So if you say you wanted to be cremated, wamesha kuzika. True or false? So if you feel very strongly about some things, unazieka in the letter of wishes, and it's just a 1-pager, and it does not talk about the things you have. Yeah, inapeana to some immediate instructions, so you can give it to someone close to you, kusema so and so alikuwa na these instructions. There is also a document now we encourage people to have here, a living will or a personal derivative. Now, today, if something happened to you, si ukufe, ugonjeke, but people have a good package, so that's fine. But let's say you did not have a very good medical package. Ugonjeke, watu wanafanya harambee, HDU, ICU. Does someone have access to your accounts or your assets? Who else can you put in charge during your lifetime to access vitu zako, kulipa bills zako kama uko mgonjwa? And we see that a lot. I think in the last 6 months, we've had 2 cases like that, where it was the man of the home, he was the breadwinner, kagonjeka, kaenda HDU, ICU, kamaliza medical cover, na wakuwa anafanya harambee. That man had money in the bank and had assets. Now, what should he have done? Now the family was trying to go to the bank to say so and so, please give us access to our father's account because akona pesa and we need to offset bills za hospitali. So what do you do in your lifetime? You empower someone to act in your capacity when you're rendered incapable by 2 or 3 doctors to offset your own medical bills. So you're not giving them unlimited powers. You're not saying you can access my accounts to do A, B, C. You're saying you can go to KCB, this account, I have been rendered incapable, and tell KCB to pay the hospital to offset a bill. See sometimes families that get stranded very, very much. I want us to move forward and talk about the life path and what are some of the things sasa tunaweza fanya during our lifetime that can help us. What kind of things and structures can we put in baskets like this kutusaidia? Any question before we talk about life? We've talked about when you don't have a will, how succession goes, writing a will. Now I want us to talk about life. Is there anyone with a question about death? We can talk about life, isn't it? Now, I want us to talk about life, and as we begin, I want to make a distinction about how we own things. You can own things by yourself, which is sole ownership. You can own a car and a logbook iko kwa jina yako. You can own a house, a title, whatever it is. If you own it by yourself, it is sole ownership. I want to make a distinction between joint ownership and ownership in common. I can see there needs to be a correction there. Supposed to be joint ownership and ownership in common. Please, may I have a volunteer? Akuje hapa mbele tafadhali. Asante. Sylvia, please come here. Sylvia, please come with your bottle of water. Asante. How are you? What's your name? Machungu. Hi. Good. Hi, Sylvia. Hi. How are you?
Fine.
Haya. Machungu alikuja CocaCola, alikuwa anaangalia Sylvia and they decided to get married. Yeah, please clap for them. Mbona ukae ni kama umefurahi? Hawasikii vizuri. Huyu hata akae ni kama amefurahi. Ni nini? Wewe umefurahi?
Nasikiza kwanza.
Unasikiza? Utalipa mali? Utaenda hii side ama hii side? Utampeleka church?
Nitampeleka church.
Good. Anyway. And because we love them very much, we decided to gift them this bottle. Please hold the bottle together. Ishike pamoja. Hivyo. That is how joint ownership works. They say there is an indivisible ownership structure. Can you tell what is Mr. Machungu's? Can you tell what is Sylvia's? Haya, Sylvia, I want to kill you off. Just stand here. Sorry. Can you tell what Sylvia has remained with? She's gone with nothing, isn't it? Can you tell what Mr. Machungu has remained with? Everything. With joint ownership, there is an automatic transmission upon death to the surviving party. So without Sylvia, Machungu owns everything. Without Machungu, Sylvia owns everything. Are we together? Thank you very much. Please clap for them. Asante. Haya. Please let me have 4 volunteers na wakuje na kalamu. 4 tafadhali. Wakuje na kalamu. Kalamu tu. Oh, I thought you wanted to be a volunteer. Please, let's have one more volunteer. Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Hiya. What's your name?
Nyang'ao.
Nyang'ao?
Maina.
Nyang'ao, Maina, Waceke?
Jagi. Kamau.
Kamau. Nyang'ao, Maina, Waceke, Kamau. Isn't it? Hopefully I'll remember. Hiya. Mr. Nyang'ao, Maina, Waceke, Kamau came na walikuwa wanataka kuform chama. Wakaita chama C, chama Centonomy. Na please give me your pen. Tu yote hivyo, asante. Na wamekuwa wakitafuta kalamu. Then wakaenda Naivas and they found this pack of pens, but it only comes in a pack of 4. But they wanted to each have a pen to write, isn't it? So they decided wacha tuchange 10 shillings, 10 shillings, 10 shillings, 10 shillings, tununue kalamu. Kila mtu anataka kuandika. Haya. This was your intention. Please just hold the pens together hivi. Shikeni pamoja hivi. Come together. Hivyo. The intention is for each to have a pen, isn't it? Haya. So I want you to see how ownership in common works. That there is a divisible ownership structure. So nitawaua, watu watasimama tu hapa. Kuja and then come with your pen. Kuja na kalamu yako. Can you see what Mr. Nyang'ao has gone with? Can you see what the others have remained with?
Yes.
Haya, I'll kill you off. Mr. Maina. Can you see what Mr. Maina has gone with? Can you see what Mr. Njagi and Kamau have remained with? Mr. Njagi, I'll kill you off. Ooh. Can you see what Mr. Kamau has remained with? Haya. I want to bring them up to resurrect them. So kuwarudisha. And I want you to see what happens when we own things in common. Please, kujeni. I want you to see what happens when you own things jointly. When you have a chama, then when we go to chamas, we are not trying to buy pens. Sindio, let this be 10 acres, mahali. Yeah? I want you to see what happens when on the title, it is joint. Haya, please hold it together. Hold the pens together. Haya. I want to kill you off. That's it. You can have a seat. Leave this. Asante. Can you tell what Mr. Kamau has gone with? Nothing. Remember, for joint ownership, there is an automatic transmission upon death to the surviving party. Haya, Mr. Njagi, I've killed you off. You leave your pen. Can you see what Mr. Njagi has gone with? Nothing. And when I say gone with, it means watu wake pia. Nothing. There is an automatic transmission upon death to the surviving parties. Mr. Maina, I want to kill you. Can you see what he's gone with? Nothing. Now, all of this belongs to Mr. Nyang'ao and his family. Are we together? When it is joint. Thank you very much. Haya, so what is my homework to you? Apana. If you own things jointly kwa title, what you're saying is this, that we are playing a game of survivor. The last man standing, ikuwe yake na familia yake. But is that your intention? No. Because when you come for chamas, you're not coming together ndio Mr. Nyang'ao akiishi wa mwisho, yeye ndio asherekee na familia yake. Is that what you want? If you own things together, you need to own it in common. We'll talk about a good tool to own it in common is a limited liability company. But even without the company, your homework is this. If you own anything with someone, your intention needs to be reflected on paper. Are we together? With Mr. Machungu and Sylvia, if you are a married couple, it's fine when you own things jointly. Without Sylvia, Machungu has everything. Without Mr. Machungu, Sylvia has everything. That is okay. But it also doesn't mean that everything you own with your spouse, you have to own jointly. Are we together? Joint ownership is also very good with parent-child. If I own something jointly with my father, if he dies, I have everything. If I die, he has everything. So that one is good. If you come together with your friends, ama chama, and you decide to hold a title jointly, hata msiandike kwa will, because there is an automatic transmission upon death to the surviving person. So sasa watoto wa Mr. Maina watakuwa kuja kuambia Mr. Nyang'ao, oh, you know, baba wetu alikuwa, he was in this chama, you people had 10 acres. At the point at which he died, everything moved to him. Now it becomes his. Now, akikufa, now we'll start looking at, did he have a will? Did he not have a will? Tumeshika hapo? Hapana, haipotei. It goes to the last person mwenye amesurvive, mwenye amekaa wa mwisho. Yeye na watu wake, bibi na watoto. Hiyo ndio sheria. That is what joint ownership means. If you own anything jointly na watu wengine, what you're saying is this: if I die before them, I want them to have everything. Yeye na familia yao.
So that means me, if you are 4, so me I can kill the rest so that I will take.
Yes. Now everything. Yes, it does. It means when you kill them, it will belong to you, and when you're not there now, you and your family. Yes, that's what it means.
Hakuna uwezekano kwamba ukijoin kitu kama ni biashara, ukiende mahali wewe ukienda utajua familia yangu tutaigawia tujua na nini na wagawia watu wangu.
If mnafanya vitu and then mnunue shamba na kwa hiyo title imeandikwa joint. You know, joint sounds like a very good name, isn't it?
Kama ile ya mpesa sasa.
Ati?
Na ile ya mpesa naona wao wanatoa. Nikesi sasa ile kimesamba.
Now that one you can distinguish. But mi nasema joint for assets. Yeah? Kama ka plot ama nini. If it is joint, what you're saying is exactly that. That inaenda kwa mtu ameishi wa mwisho. Mwenye amesurvive the last one. Yeye na familia yake. So on your titles, what it needs to say, if you own anything with anyone else, it needs to say so and so of ID this and so owning in common this percent and this percent, like those 4 gentlemen. They kama wali contribute equally, inaweza kuwa 25%, 25%, 25%, isn't it? Ama in whichever percentage they contributed. Lakini wakiandika jointly, mwenye atakufa wa mwisho itakuwa yake na familia yake. So what do we need to do? My homework. If you own anything with someone, wende uangalie how you own it. Yeah? Yes, exactly. If you don't and it's joint, kenye unasema ni Junyang'ao ameishi after me, iende yote kwa yeye na familia yake. That's what it means by law. Ati Kiambu. Yes. Haya. Haya. Siku zuri. Hapana, si iangaliwe. What people need to do is to just understand what joint means, isn't it? Because when you understand, then you know joint is good for married couples, for parent-child. Lakini kama watu wa chama, then it does not work for you people. Now, the best way to own things in common is through a company, a limited liability company, where the units of ownership zinaitwa shares. Now, let me give a short story. Stand here. There's a friend of mine whose grandfather had a 40-acre piece of land in Kiambu. He had 2 wives and 13 children. The details of which wife had how many children, I don't know, not important. Now, this 40-acre piece of land ndio ilikuwa inatumika he farmed on this land, ilipeleka watoto shuleni and his entire family. Now, typically what happens is that he would keep subdividing, isn't that what we see? So that by the time it gets to my friend, na my friend ni mjukuu, she would probably have a quarter or maybe an eighth, actually maybe a 16th, ama less, true or false? An eighth si mbaya, ama a 16th si mbaya, but we agree what is the benefit coming from this compared to the benefit coming from this, it has decreased kabisa. So what did he do? He put this parcel into a limited liability company, wacha tuite family co. Family company. So that in his will, yenye tulikuwa tunasema, what he is giving out ni shares. The people who own the shares are called shareholders. What he is giving out is shares, but not giving out the actual thing. So this becomes a good way sometimes for people to consolidate assets, and then in your will, you don't have to subdivide everything. Now, how many of us are thinking about getting into business when we retire? Starting a company, kufanya biashara. How many of us are thinking about that? Eh? Oh, you're good. Good. I can see this. I can just change it to the other side. Higher. Let me use you as an example. If you are to do business, what kind of business would you be doing? Nini unapenda kufanya? No, sasa huyu anakuambia hardware, huyu anakuambia agribusiness, wewe tupe yako. Okay. All right. What is yours? Just give me one. Yeah, cereal. I've been told there's another one coming. No? They're bringing higher. Did we have the thing for this? No. No. Anyway, let me write this. Nita transfer hapo pakubwa. Yeah, akona business ya wacha tuseme ya spare parts. Give us a business that your wife would be doing. Just any industry. Agribusiness. Wacha tuseme ya hafanyi spare parts. Yeye anafanya nini? Boutique. Umeshapewa. Boutique. Now, remind me your name? Peter. Peter has a business. He sells spare parts. The motorbikes. His wife runs a boutique. Peter dies. What happens? And we see this a lot. Mrs. Peter, yeye anajua boutique, si ndio? Lakini anakumbuka the husband was bringing quite a bit of money into the family through these spare parts. So what does she do? She starts running the boutique na anaanza kufanya spare parts. True or false? She starts doing both of them. But what is the reality? She may not be good with spare parts. Maybe she doesn't know this industry very well. Maybe she doesn't have a passion for it. Labda tu haijui. What should Peter have done in his lifetime? Aregister yaka ka business, shares zikuwe zake. But he empowers people we call directors to be in charge of the day to day. Lakini shares, in his will, he can say that it comes to the family, Mrs. Peter, and so on and so forth. Because what we see a lot is the same thing on the opposite side. Mrs. Peter dies. Peter anasema, hey, apart from he duka ya spare parts, I'll start running the boutique. And we see that a lot, isn't it? True, but he might not be good at vitu za wanawake na boutique. So what should his wife have done? Empower people who know what they do here. Lakini hizi shares anaweka kwa will na anapea mume. Now, apart from that, let me use let me use Peter Company Limited. Peter Company Limited. Peter owns this with his wife. 50. Yeah? If you have a caplot here and many other things, you can transfer into a company that you have and you're exempt from stamp duty. Because what we tell the collector of stamp duty is, I'm not making any financial benefit. I am just trying to be organized. So a plot that you have together with your wife, things that you own, you can put in a company that you own together. Now, I'm using that as a married couple, but now with our act, you can do that by yourself. Yeah? As Mr. Njage Company Limited, you put the things that you own, and then now in your will, now you're not giving this car, parcel number, this, unapeana to shares. So it's something that you can do either alone or you can do as a couple, whichever you decide. These are some of the benefits. Human beings die, companies do not die. Meaning that you can enjoy that company structure and set it up to work for yourself, set it up to work for you and your spouse, watoto, wajukuu, and so on and so forth. Yeah? There are ways in which we get tax efficient. So you can be tax efficient if you want to protect the asset. And people bring this up a lot with ancestral land. Yeah? We have a lot of times when families want to protect their ancestral land. Sindio? Where you don't want it, hautaki uzwe. A good way to put it is you put it in the company. And then you own it. You can own it with a spouse or your brothers or your sister, and make it hard for people to sell their particular ancestral land. So that is a good way to do it. Now, if you give your son your ancestral land, in most likelihood atauza. True or false? So things that you have worked for, unfortunately, for 20, 30, 40 years, we see watu waki squander in 5 years sometimes, or 10 years, sometimes even less. So this is a good way to protect some of the things. Any question before we end our session this evening? Ikuwe kampuni yako. Yes. Ukitaka ikiwa big enough kuandika wafanyikazi, ndio. At first, as ukiregister ufanye tu peke yako, uanze kufanya biashara nayo. As you continue to grow it, ukienda kununua shamba, unanunua shamba in the name of that company. Kama ulikuwa umeshanunua shamba in your own name, unaweza transfer hiyo shamba kwa hiyo kampuni. Then sasa in your will, haupei bibi, Mrs. So and so, I give you this. Mtoto, I'm giving you LR number this. Sasa unawapea shares. So it just makes it a little easier. Kama ulikuwa na business, and one of the advantages ya companies is this. Succession, when people fight in court, we've had people fighting for 5 years, isn't it? We've seen people fighting for 10 years and 15 years. Any benefit that they were going to get, hawapati until watu wamalize kupigana. At the end, ndio wanapata. if those things were in a company, the company continues running. Because what people are fighting for is not the asset, they are fighting for the shares. So when we see families fighting in court, if those assets were in a company or doing things, the company does not stop. But where the owner, Mr. Nyang'ao owns everything as Mr. Nyang'ao, na watoto wako waanze kupigana, na labda ulikuwa na bibi wawili ama watatu, wapigane, no one enjoys anything until that fight stops in court, until everything is divided, and then they can inherit. Unfortunately, we have seen instances where people fight, watoto wako wanakuwa, they get into their 40s and 50s, wenye sasa wanapigana ni wajukuu. And we've seen that. Yeah? So when things are in a company, it just makes it easier. Are we together? Hopefully I've answered. Okay. Any question?
Your process you have to register those companies.
No, it is not. In fact, the law has made it very, very easy. How many of us here have higher? I have some homework. Get onto eCitizen. You register an eCitizen account with your ID. From eCitizen, then you can register your own company where you're the director and the shareholder. And the process is very simple. Before, with the Companies Act Cap 486, lazima mngekuwa watu wawili or more. And you needed to submit the whole booklet, your memorandum and articles and many other things. That process has been simplified. You can go and see a lawyer or an accountant, but you can actually do it for yourself. Get onto eCitizen, register, put the details, and then the platform generates the forms for you to sign. Yeah? So it's become very easy.
So, unajua kile kitu watu wanaopanga sana about these companies. Sasa unaanza kufuatwa ni ukulima unafanya dairy farming. Unaanza kusikiza KRA inaanza kukuja taxes. Sijui nini is a company. Hizo vitu kwa sasa.
Now, you can actually ensure that you're very tax efficient. Ulipe vitu. So there are ways that you're actually more tax efficient when you have a company. When you get the proper advice from an accountant or a tax expert, trust me, companies are very, very efficient. They are. They are. Mm.
So can I form a company? Ng'ombe zangu ni 5.
Yes and no. No. Ng'ombe zako ni 5, but what do you want to do with the company? You see, you're not just forming the company to form the company, isn't it? Because when you do business,
for example, with about 5 cows, so you can start like a yogurt.
Yes.
Company.
Good.
Process, come a company, a small machine.
I'm even glad that you've brought that. If you started, let's do it as Mr. Njage, and then let's do it as Mr. Njage Limited, isn't it? You have 5 cows, umeanza kufanya yogurt. If you come and you're trying to sell things to CocaCola as Mr. Njage, they will not want to do business with Mr. Njage. True or false? Yeah? People do not want, companies, people don't want to do business with Mr. Njage. They will want you to have registered and have Mr. Njage Limited. That way the procurement people can deal with you. That's one of the benefits of companies. As you're getting out and thinking of biashara, as you start out, do it alone. But as you grow, people don't want to deal with Wendy. That's just the bottom of the line. They don't. They want to deal with Wendy Limited or something that has been registered. Because when you do things by yourself, there is no distinction between you and the business. Mr. Njage is the same. KRA pin tunatumia ya Mr. Njage na account. Mtu hataki kujua kama unaekanga vitu zako separate ama hivyo. Yeah? So when you're doing business with other people, you become more attractive to people when you have registered yourself. That is one of the benefits. Ukienda kwa bank and you want to get a loan, you look a little better when you go as Mr. Njage Limited compared to when you go alone. When you're packaged in a limited liability company, and you have a KRA certificate, you have a tax compliance, you have those things, it's easier, you get better borrowing capacity facilities than when you're just walking in as an individual. So those are some of the benefits. As you start out, you can do it by yourself, unaweza anza kienyeji, but as you want to do business with other people and grow, it is important to consider to register. Yeah. Register. Sio pesa mingi. Sio pesa mingi. But the fee itself, let me just tell you, the fee itself on eCitizen, when you go and do it, apart from any other help you will get, is 10,750 to submit those forms. And then maybe if you get expert help, so it's not a fee that should deter you. When you start doing things, please go ahead and do so. Yeah. Yeah.
And is there a training for hapo hisi ya nini unaweza enda?
Yeah, eCitizen. Kwa eCitizen yenyewe wako na a form that will tell you what to do. Unaweza pigia mtu, I'll give you my number. Nipigia, I'm happy to give you all the information. Again, all of this information is putting your affairs in order. Yeah? Si tulianza kwenye hatukuwa na will. And now we are just getting more organized and more organized. Yeah? I want to end, we are practically done with our session for this afternoon, but I want to end, and in a few minutes, that's what I wanted. Talk about trust. Trust, in fact, this is the diagram that will show it best. Trust is an arrangement where assets, where an owner or a founder puts assets in people we call trustees or a trust company for the benefit of the people we call beneficiaries. Trusts are for legacy purposes. So what is my homework to you? What do you want your legacy to be? By virtue of the fact that you lived and walked on this earth for X number of years, what do you want your legacy to be? I want to give you a story and just to elaborate how a trust that I did works, and it works in these two ways, and the owner allows me to share this story. So a lady came with her husband, and they decided after this session they wanted to create a trust. It works in these two ways. Number one is this. Their trust asset is the home. They live in Nairobi in a home. Yeah? And they have 3 children. That is their trust asset. Should they die and there's a child who is not above, and their children are still young, watoto wataenda, wakae na guardians, this home will be rented out. The rental income from this home is what is going to be used to educate our watoto and for their general sustenance. When these children finish school up to a first degree, trust funds are closed up. But tunakumbuka rent bado inaingia. This rent continues to be invested. When these children have children who start going to school, trust funds are opened up. These grandchildren wanna enjoy school fees up to college, and then trust funds are closed up. When these grandchildren have children who start going to school, the trust funds are opened up, and that continues. The second way it works is this. When this couple grows old, watatoka kwa hiyo nyumba, they'll rent out this home. Hiyo ndio itakuwa their retirement benefits. Rent out the home, it will be used if they have any medical bills in a lipa. If they die and there's a child who's not finished school, it will pay their school fees. Finish school until college, trust funds are closed up. Watoto, wakipata watoto, and the grandchildren start going to school, trust funds are opened up. They enjoy school fees. After college, trust funds are closed. Now, the thing about trusts is this, that trusts are for legacy purposes. You need to have a specific objective or purpose. For this lady, you remember her trust asset ni moja tu, and she's decided that her legacy is education. By virtue of the fact that she lived and walked on this earth with her husband, they want to give one benefit to their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, which is education. Yeah? So for trust, you need to have a specific object or purpose of the trust. Now, why are trusts important? Because as we talk about estate planning, and I keep giving you homework, we should have noted it down. I want you to think about your family very, very honestly. How many of us have adult children here? Adult children? Now, as you have adult children, you start to see whether your children are responsible or they're not responsible, isn't it? Now, you can have an honest look and decide, I have acquired this much. Nikiachia msichana wangu na kijana, watauza in the next 3 years, isn't it? Trusts are a good way to ensure that you give a specific purpose for the things that you have left. Yeah? So you're not saying, I've given you, it's a level above company, because with company, unapea shares, isn't it? Mr. Njage, if you give Wendy shares 20%, you can't decide what Wendy does with the 20% of the shares. With the trust, you get to dictate what it is. So trusts are very good if you want to keep your families in check. You have looked and you have decided and seen that the way my things is, mtu anaweza maliza vitu zangu in the next 5 years, and I have worked for 30 years. With this example I am giving you, this lady, one of her children is special needs. He's autistic. So during the lifetime, now they can ensure that the son has a full, dignified life. But they have ensured, even when they are not around, because he might not always be at par with the others, they have put measures in place to ensure that that happens. So again, if you look around your family and you have special circumstances, that is a good place to put it. Who had asked this? I think the gentleman next to you. Please remind me your name. Jenga. Mr. Jenga, you asked this towards the beginning of the class. I don't like to say it, but trusts are the best way to disinherit people. You remember you were asking about your wife passes on, then you get someone else and you have some children. Ata hawa watakuja ku, isn't it? This is the good way. This would be a way to do it. Because then you're very specific about who is benefiting from what and what benefit they are getting. It can be as simple, nimewaambia hiyo ni ya education. With the people who have more assets, you can give as many benefits. Yeah, but again, it's always to start from step 1. Ask yourself, where are we? Where am I today? This is what the process would look like. So you ask yourself, what is the purpose of the trust? And that's where my question is, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to leave behind? Watoto, wajukuu. And then you decide, how is this trust going to be funded? Is it going to be that one home like the one I gave? Do you have bonds? Do you have shares? Do you have a business? What are the assets? Who is the one who is going to manage it? Am I leaving trustees who are individuals? Or is it a large amount and I can leave a corporate company to manage it? And then who is actually benefiting from the trust? Then you prepare the document. It's called a trust deed. So a trust can last at least 80 years. So it's a very comprehensive document. And then after that, you register it and then you transfer the assets to it. So this is what we call the most sophisticated tool, estate planning. Now, with that said, gentlemen and Sylvia, we have come to the end of our session. Those are my contacts. Ukiwa na swali, please ask, or you can get my number or get my email.